Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Todd's Podcast. Our podcast guest today, I think you're really going to enjoy. We're going to explore the world of barbecue spices, being an entrepreneur with Chad Ward, principal at Whiskey Bent BBQ here in Lakeland, Florida. And we're going to talk about that, how he's built his company, hopefully a little bit, and talk about barbecue competitions. Got a few questions, requests from family and friends, and so appreciate it. Welcome, Chad. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
So I got to say, the first time I met Chad, I was the judges coordinator for the Miss Florida Citrus Pageant earlier this year, and I did not know you. I don't really live in the world of barbecue other than I enjoy it, and I took a picture of you in your outfit. It was a suit, kind of a olive colored suit, had roses all over it, embroidered roses. And I sent it to my son. I said, look at what this judge is wearing. I've never seen this guy before. And he goes, Dad, that's Chad Ward. And I'm going, okay, what does that mean? He goes, he's like a god in the barbecue world. So he was so excited that I was in the room with you. And he said, you got to get him on your podcast. So I appreciate you coming in.
Oh, happy to do it.
And you've got an eclectic outfit on today, and pretty much everything are the clothes kind of your signature? Seems like it's usually the pants of some sort.
Yeah, it is. And it was one of those things when I left the software world to come do barbecue full time. I donated the majority of so there's a husky man out there that shopped at the Salvation Army about 8 years ago that just got a mother load of dress clothes. But it was one of those things when, my dad was always one of those that said kind of be memorable, regardless if it's playing sports or just how you treat people. And to me, it was one of those, in any world where you're trying to make a name for yourself, obviously the product's got to be number one, but anything you can do just to jaunt people's memory. And now it's kind of interesting. And it is just the shorts or pants or when it comes, if I do have to wear something that's a suit, I usually try to make sure it fits with the motif. But, and it's interesting now because you'll kind of see, in the airport, I travel a bunch, and you'll see somebody kind of look and be like, well, is that him? And then they'll immediately look down. And if they see the shorts, and you'll see them kind of walk over. Or the best is that this past trip, I was coming back through Atlanta, and I just happened to look over, and I saw this guy, and he would look at his phone, and he looked up, and he looked at his phone, and he looked up, and I just happened to be walking that way to go use the bathroom, and I just kind of gently leaned over and I go, I am that swimsuit model you keep looking at. He's like, no, you're the barbecue guy, right? I was like, yeah, I am. But the shorts have just been one of those things. They're fun, and I get to write off my clothes as a business expense now. So
you also work over a grill, so you're around a hot atmosphere. So it's
absolutely
good. So a little bit about Chad. You got your AA degree from Polk State and your BA from Florida Southern.
I sure didn't leave Polk County.
Yeah, that's right. Are you a Polk County boy?
I am, born and raised.
Here in Lakeland?
Here in Lakeland, yeah. So I grew up out in South Lakeland by the airport. So I live in the house I grew up in. So so I've been here. I've traveled about, I think next year I'll hit the 2 million mile mark for air travel between my software job and barbecue. But I've always called Polk County home. There's just something here that I absolutely love. That's just super enjoyable.
Lakeland High School, Jenkins, where were you?
Kathleen.
Okay.
Yeah, other side of the tracks, baby.
Okay.
So I actually, short story there, I went 10th grade at Kathleen. And then Jenkins was built. Yep. And I was zoned in Jenkins. And there was just something about Kathleen just being a melting pot and having so many different people. I just felt comfortable there. And then, the first 3 days I went to Jenkins, I was like, man, this just isn't Kathleen. And it's very easy in those days to transfer from Jenkins to Kathleen. But I ended up going back there, and that's where I graduated from.
Play sports?
I did. I played baseball there. Then I played a little bit of baseball at Polk, and then I just went to school at Southern.
Okay. So you've got Whiskey Bent BBQ. You've got a podcast, Old Boy Podcast, which if no one has listened to that, it is compelling listening. I'll talk about that in a minute. I listened to a couple of them, and it's just fascinating, the guys that you've had on and their approach to life and what they do. So I do want people to reach out to that. It's OLBOY Podcast, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you won a lot of national awards. You've won a lot of national titles, state titles in the barbecue world. how did you get started in this? You know, everyone wants to know is how did Chad go from what he was to what he is now? How did you build it?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So just the barbecue side of it, I just always enjoyed cooking barbecue. Love my dad to death. I always say when it came to the parents, I won the lottery. You know, they're still together after 53 years. Awesome. I got to do their vow renewal at their 50th.
You performed the ceremony?
I did.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
I did in a very similar suit.
To what you wore?
Yeah.
What was your dad wearing? Normal?
The funny part is, like, my personality and the outlandishness and all that I get from my mom. My dad's like, awesome guy, but he's definitely doesn't want to be the center of attention, or he's better off just kind of in the corner. He's more than happy to talk to you.
Let you and your mom shine.
Yes, yes. So I started cooking at a young age, and then I would say really in college is when it kind of kicked off. Me and my buddy Jared Hatcher and my buddy Brian Pate were all living together in a house, and we were fortunate enough to where Bernie Little dropped off a keg every Friday at our house, so that was nice.
Taste testing?
Yeah, doing some market research, if you will. And so the one thing was like, man, we have this beer, it's football, we got to have some food.
There you go.
And so the first grill that I cooked on was remember the old Sunbeam gas grills? So my dad's old one, like all the gas innards have kind of worn out on it, and so I just got a piece of flange and some JB Weld and drilled a couple holes in it, and now we had a charcoal cooker.
There you go.
And kind of cut my teeth on everything that was, about 14 minutes from going out of date because we were college kids and we couldn't afford anything. So we just kind of bought whatever was cheap. But there was something about everybody coming over and feeding everybody, and just it was very communal, and I liked that about it. And so that goes on through college. And then after college, real world starts. I'd been working full time at Publix out at the corporate office and going to school full time my senior year, and still trying to keep somewhat of a social life. And stayed at Publix another year and a half after I graduated, and then an opportunity came up to go work for a startup software firm. And I've just always been one of those guys. And don't get me wrong, my dad did a 4-decade career at Publix, and it's rewarded our family well. And Publix is an amazing employer, but
absolutely.
I just wanted to do something different. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do different things. And so when this opportunity came up to become a software consultant, I said, hey, I'm all for it. And I had done helped with a very large install of SAP at Publix. And I remember sitting there going, dude, these guys got it made. Like, they fly in Monday morning, they come in after lunch. They're grabbing lunch at the airport on Friday, flying home, having cocktails with their boys at happy hour. Like, this is awesome. You know what I mean?
Life is grand.
Yeah. So, and really, Todd, if you go back and look at it, like, I think if I don't make that decision, the barbecue never happens, because I know the hours I worked at Publix, and I was in the management program there, and I know what probably that future would have looked like, and I don't think it would have been being able to take off Fridays to go do barbecue comps.
Well, you couldn't wear those clothes either.
No, definitely couldn't. They haven't loosened up the dress code policy that much at Publix since I left. But for me, and that's kind of where it started, got into the software business, and it was, work from home before work from home was cool. So my schedule was our startup was outside of Dallas, so I would fly out to Dallas one week and then be home a week. Just so happened most of those weeks that I was home, I could find a barbecue competition to go to. And
cooking with your buddies that you lived with?
Yep. Okay. So that's how it started. So we get into the software business and on the road a bunch. And Jared and I get home from a project a day early, and so we decided to hang out Saturday night. And so we were sitting around the house and listening to Country Gold Saturday night, having some drinks. And
from that keg Bernie Little dropped off.
Yeah. we graduated then. We was making at least $50 a year, so we had some of that $25 a bottle bourbon, thinking we were living,
brown water,
thinking we were on top of life.
I get it.
And so we were sitting there, and Jared's like, so after this, let's say we'd probably been in maybe 6-8 months. He's like, is there anything you missed with all the travel and this and that? And I said, I miss getting together with the guys and just having fun on the weekends and cooking. And he's like, maybe we could do it, but just not every weekend. And so we started looking, and we found barbecue contest, and that was in 2007. And there was some contests out there, and at that point, I would say there was more barbecue contests then than there are now, because it wasn't as expensive as it is now. And so you could cook like 10 contests and not go within further than 2 hours from here. So we talked about Pig Fest, because Pig Fest had been around forever, right. And walked that many a times with my dad, and I was like, this, we we could do something like Pig Fest. I'm like, well, I don't know that we want to cook our first one, in our hometown. Let's go find another one. And so August of 2007, we went over to the Rodeo Arena, Silver Spurs there.
Kissimmee.
Yep, Kissimmee. And we entered the amateur division. There was 9 teams. We finished 7th and lost to a troop of Boy Scouts. So they were getting their cooking
because
badge.
the Girl Scouts couldn't get in.
Yeah.
Is that why?
They were getting their cooking badge, and I was getting humbled. But there was something about that day, that kind of took me back to like growing up in sports my whole life. There was a camaraderie there, but you were still competing, and I was just hooked from that day on. And then it just kind of kept growing, and it wasn't until so late 2007 we cooked in the amateur division until about 2010. And then we moved up to the pro ranks, and we've done pretty well. We won 7 state championships. We cooked about 135 contests across 28 states. And in doing so, what I found was I really like to travel and go out and see other teams and not just stay here. And in doing that, before podcasts were cool, I was like, that'd be kind of neat on a Tuesday night just to get together some of the comp guys and just talk barbecue. And that's how I ended up running across Traeger. I was doing that podcast, and I remember just seeing some barbecue news come across that Traeger had been acquired by a venture capital company, and this guy that was the former CEO at Skull Candy Headphones. And I'm like, well, Skull Candy, that company came on the scene like nobody had ever seen, around the time Beats did, and really kind of owned that tier 2 market. And so I was like, well, I know about venture capital from all my years in software. I'd be interested if somebody, came in from a VC point of view, saw barbecue, and what would they do with it? And so I just sent like a dry email to like info@traeger.com and just said, hey guys, here's who I am. If you're interested in what I do or my personality, like you can check out this show on Tuesday nights. And dumb luck, I sent that on a Monday. The next day it got routed to their VP of sales. And they had just been in a meeting where they had said, 6 months ago we bought a barbecue brand, but we don't have a barbecue personality. And said, man, I got your email. I clicked on the link, and he goes, I watched for about 10 minutes, and I went in and I grabbed our CMO. Said, hey, remember that discussion we were having? I think we may have found the guy. He goes, and then we watched for the next hour and a half. And towards the last 15 minutes, he goes, do you think that guy's going to drink a whole 175 of Crown Royal in a 2-hour show? He's like, I don't know. I guess we got to stay and find out. But it was one of those nights, too. I got lucky. Like, I think Myron Mixon and Tuffy Stone were my 2 guests that night. So, I mean, you're talking about 2 of the top guys, especially at that point with barbecue pitmasters that were like on top of the world in barbecue. But they've just always been friends, because we just went around and beat each other's brains in parking lots. But
then had a beer or drink with them afterwards. I mean,
absolutely. One of the stories I tell about Myron all the time that was one of the funniest is, there was a contest down in Venice, great contest. They used to have it at the airport. I mean, we ended up raising, Pigfest does a great job of raising money, but that contest for just even being a couple years in, we were raising $75,000 in a weekend, and that's good for charities.
Yeah.
And Don Fisher down there in Venice was always looking for ways to get the sponsors more involved, this and that. And so the second year they do it, the first year we had won grand and Byron had won reserve. So the second year they do the event, they said, hey, if we'll pay to bring you guys in Thursday night and get you a room. Would you guys be willing to come and meet with the sponsors and kind of do a sponsor party at Sharky's there on the beach? Don't threaten us with a good time. Absolutely. That's right. And they said open bar tab, which is like, all right, yeah, we're in. That's anytime you want to get a barbecue, you got to say yes, just go. Yeah,
your real motivation's starting to peek through a little here, Chad.
So we go and we're doing our thing, and it's towards the end. There's probably like 30 minutes left. And guy came by and he's like, can I get y'all the same? And it was me and Myron were just thinking double crown and diet. And so this guy comes back like with a real sheepish look on his face, and he's like, guys, I don't think we prepared. The bar's out of Crown Royal. And so Myron looks down at his watch and he's all right, we got 10 more minutes. Man, when it hit 10 minutes and 30 seconds, he's tapping me on the shoulder. He's like, let's get back to the hotel. I was like, why is that? He's like, I got a full bottle of Crown in my truck.
There you go.
So we go back, and we're literally just sitting on the tailgate, and we're guys that sit around, drink, and watch food cook. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
We lose track of time, and me and Myron are not we don't have the meekest voices. We can enunciate a bit. And so I don't know, like 1:15, this like 19-year-old night audit kid comes from out of the front desk, and you can tell he's really nervous, and he walks up and he's like, guys, I hate to ask you. He's like, but is there any way y'all can maybe keep it down? Like I've had I've had a couple noise complaints. And Myron's like, man, all you had to do was come out here and ask us. He's like, sure. He's like, we'll finish this one up and call it a night. We probably need to anyway. We got a busy weekend. And is there any reason you were scared to come out here? And I hadn't walked in the hotel yet. Neither had Myron. Our guys had just taken our bags up. So literally we got there and went to the event. You walked in this hotel, Todd, and there was a poster every 6 feet with mine and Myron's face on it, advertising the meet and greet with the sponsors. So this kid thinks he's got like 2 celebrities out in the parking lot that he's got to go tell to shut the hell up. So
right.
But Myron's that kind of guy. We still laugh about that story to this day. But it's funny. Even the barbecue guys that are on top of the world are just still some of the most approachable, down to earth, fun dudes.
Todd's podcast is sponsored in part by SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate. Since 1996, the firm has offered unrivaled brokerage services throughout Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. With over 90 expert advisors throughout the region, our team has the knowledge and resources to help clients realize their most ambitious real estate investment goals. When you choose SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate, you have access to a diverse suite of commercial and land services, including forestry consulting, land management, auctions, property management, commercial leasing, and negotiating conservation easements. If you're seeking to invest in land or explore commercial real estate opportunities in the Southeast, contact us today at svnsaunders.com or call 877-518-5263 to connect with an advisor today. Once again, that's svnsaunders.com or by phone at 877-518-5263.
So you started off cooking. How did you get into the business side of what you do? I mean, it sounds like you grew organically just from some boys having a few drinks, cooking on the weekends, to competing on the weekends, to now you've created this company. Did you buy a company? Did you start from scratch? And how did you grow?
Yeah, no. So we started absolutely from scratch. So been competing for a couple of years. So we started competing in 2007. We started the store in 2013. So
was it just a natural extension of what you were doing? As, hey, we're not getting the spices we want. Well, let's make our own. Two
things that started out of. One was because the store started before we started manufacturing our spices.
Right.
So, at that point in time, we had one option of getting barbecue supplies in this town. And to me, it just wasn't an acceptable option. It was a place you walked into, nobody was friendly. You usually couldn't find what you needed. It just wasn't a good shopping experience. And just growing up in Lakeland and Polk County, it's like, you know what, man? The people of this county need somewhere where they can go in, get some friendly service, 90% of what you need's on the shelf, because you can't carry all things for all people. You can't stay in business. But, we try to have all those basics and everything. And just wanted that one-stop shop. Selfishly, probably reason number 4 on that list is it's pretty nice on a Thursday night to be able to walk in your own store and shop for a contest and throw it all in a tub and get on down the road. But like I said, that's like reason number 4. But first off, it was just, it was kind of that field of dreams thing. If you build it, will they come? And so me, Jared, and Adam Norman started the store together, and our spouses. And we started that store on Tennessee Avenue. Larry Norman was nice enough to give us a cut rate deal on some 922 square feet down there on 116 Tennessee.
You were some big old boys filling up that space at the time.
And Todd, I'm telling you, that 922 included the back room, everything. I mean, it was maybe 650 in merchandise, 650 square feet of merchandising. And we started on, I think, $33,000. I think we were all in for like 11. And it was just like, hey, let's see what happens. And we could tell within like 6 months, like, okay, we think we've got something here. Adam and Jared could realize Nicole and I were putting, the lion's share of the time in, which, look, man, Jared has 3 kids. Adam has 3 kids. Adam's got multiple businesses. Jared's got multiple businesses. Totally understood it. And they were the kind of guys, they came to us and said, hey, look, before this gets big, before we lose a friendship over it, are you interested in just buying us out for what we've got in it? And sure enough, we bought both of them out. And so then Nicole and I kind of took the store business, and Tennessee, it just became too small. So then we moved over to South Florida, the old Cellular Unlimited building that all of us will remember if you grew up, in the 90s here. Which is funny because Chris Farina can now say he worked there when it was Cellular Unlimited and Whiskey Bent. I don't know if he's saying work. He pulled a paycheck at both places, but either way. So we moved over there, and that was about the time that we started considering seasonings. It was like, how do we take all these recipes we've used in the past for competition and had results with, how do we get those in people's hands? And for me, everybody always thinks because you open a store, you open a rub line, you're going after the competition cook. And love the competition cook. That's what allowed me to become this in this industry. But that's maybe 5% of your business.
You need
20% of your business the week of Pig Fest.
Right.
But
really,
but besides that, during Pig Fest, it's a huge portion. Okay. We finally got everybody trained, and even I love too the fact that guys that are coming down will call on a win, usually like the Friday before to see if they got to order online anything. Hey, do you got this? Yep, got it all. Got a box for you. We'll have it at your campsite when you get there, kind of deal. But it's that backyard cook. So it's like, how do we get these seasonings in the hands of the backyard person? And so we started with one, the old fashioned. That was our first rub, and it did pretty well. But it's hard to sell just one rub, right? Usually, if I were to go back and do it again, I would launch with 4. So that's what we did. We launched with 1, and then we came back and we had 3 more. And then our big opportunity on the seasoning side came when Academy Sports reached out to us through my buddy Matt Pittman at Meat Church. Matt had went in as one of the first barbecue brands, and Chris, the buyer from Academy, said, "Hey, Matt, is there anybody you'd recommend? I'd like to bring another full line." And he's like, you should bring in Chad's. And so we've been now in Academy for around 4 years. Chain wide, it's a big account. It's done well for us. And so, yes, that's kind of how the businesses got started out of it. And obviously they've evolved.
Yeah. You've expanded, you do have your retail. Do you do sauces, or are you just a rub company?
It's a great question. And so we to go back real quick, so we had the South Florida location, around 4,000 square feet. And that was like a choppy 4,000 square feet. Right. Like it wasn't set up ideally for how you'd want retail, but I remember when we walked in that space, like, there's no way we'll fill this up. And it filled up in like 14 months.
Right.
But so that building sells, and you talk about like divine intervention without it happening. So what I wanted at that point, and so this is probably August of 2019 when this is going down. And what I really wanted is where we're at now. I wanted to go ahead and like make the investment and find somewhere 12 to 18,000 square feet, build out what we want, have plenty of room for growth. But I just couldn't find it that quick. So I said, you know what? Just over here off of Drainfield, we can get these 2 units. It's right by the house. It'll be simple. And so not what I want, but I'll just do a 2-year lease. That'll give me time to find what I want. Couldn't have been a bigger blessing, because then obviously, February, March of 2020, we have COVID.
Right.
And a big part of what that new building was going to be, kind of like what we've done where we're at now, was I wanted a classroom and I wanted to do classes and have it as a community room also, et cetera, et cetera. That probably would have sunk me, Todd. Like that would have been a rough. We probably could have offset it with rub sales, because rub sales were really, really good, but it would have caused a lot of stress that we didn't need. So stay in Drainfield actually extended another year. So we were there about 3-ish years. And then we decided we were going to do what we're doing now. So when we built out the facility that we're at here off of 98, we built it to do sauces and to do rubs. And the whole intention of doing that was our co-packer was going to come over, and our co-packer does rubs and sauces. Well, long story short, not long after we had gotten moved in, the co-packer just goes dark on us. Like, not only they're not going to move in, they're not filling orders, and it's like, oh, so what do? We stood up a manufacturing operation. Right. And we were just in the rub business, so I wasn't worried about buying kettles or sauce or any of that. And so as we did it, and we started running rubs efficiently through those 2 rooms, It's like, do we really need to get in the sauce business? And so really good friends with another great Florida brand called the W Sauce, Barron Burton. And they have a co-packer of sauces in St. Augustine that does really, really well. And so we ended up hooking up and talking to those guys. And they're like, we're not in the rub business, but we have customers that come to us for sauce. What if we send them to you for rubs? And it's like, well, we've got customers that want to be in the sauce business, and we don't think we want to do sauces. So it's worked out really well that any customers that need both, we just work with the co-packer out of St. Augustine, and then vice versa on the rub side. And for me, I feel like it's always about, controlling as much of your own destiny as you can. And for us, even if we do a sauce, we'll end up doing a sauce. But to me, my thoughts behind it is probably do 2 sauces, probably do a regular and do a spicy. And then hey, if you want this Whiskey Bent BBQ sauce to be peach, here's the 2 steps you go to. You know what I mean? And kind of use social media to teach people how to make the sauce their own flavor profile. But it comes down to a SKU game, right? I don't want to be carrying 12 SKUs of sauce and 12, 15 SKUs of seasoning.
How important has social media been for your growth? I think I know the answer.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's a big part of who you've become and how you've promoted your business.
It is. Social media has been great. A lot of people will tell you I'm not very good at it. And I will be the first one to say I'm not very good at it. And the reason I say that is I'm very much a live in the moment guy.
Right.
So when you get that opportunity to cook for Jason Aldean or Post Malone and you're having a meaningful conversation, the last thing I want to do at the end of that conversation is go, hey man, can we get a pic? I would much rather have the stories and the experience than a picture. And if you don't want to believe the stories, I really don't give a damn.
Right.
I was there. I know what happened. You know what I mean? I don't need a picture to, substantiate or validate it. So it's been awesome. Like I would say, it's one of those things that we just decided to invest more in. So like we hired a marketing firm, and you'll see us doing a lot more social wise, and I think we'll see more growth out of it. But it's definitely, for anybody out there starting a business, it's the cheapest way of customer acquisition by far.
Right.
And the A/B testing you can do so quickly on social. I mean, you can A/B test and within 48 hours have real information on how do you move forward.
Right.
And that's where I look at it, is it's just so quick, and you can move your money around so quickly too on what's working, that social media is definitely a game changer. It's helped us.
So you had mentioned cooking for Jason Aldean, Zach Brown. You cook for celebrities all over. You're working other deals as you go along. You also mentioned cooking classes, grilling classes. That's something that you offer at your store. Mm-hmm. I know you travel a lot. You have other partners now? You got other guys that are partnering with you that work for you that do those classes? Or how often do you get to stay in your own bed?
Todd, probably a bad time to ask right now, because this summer has probably been the busiest one yet, but I'm not complaining at all.
Well, I know how hard it was to get you here.
Yeah. I think when I looked at it, I think I'll end up doing like 240 days on the road this year. So
that's a grind.
Yeah.
And people don't understand how hard that is.
They really don't. But I mean, at the same time too, it's like, I get to do some pretty cool stuff, so I don't, lament over it. My girlfriend does a lot of it with me too. And so, a lot of times we'll put, like we were just out in Salt Lake, doing 3 events, but we put, a day and a half on the front of it and went up to Park City and hung out, and then, went to work for a week, and, that kind of thing. So, when I first left Publix to go into the software world, I had a gentleman that had done the reverse. He had been a sales guy and then came to work at Publix. So he'd done 10 or so years on the road. And he told me, he said, if you stay in the hotel room and just eat at the hotel bar, he's like, that lifestyle will chew you up and spit you out. You'll be making poor decisions your whole life. He said, even if you're tired, he said, just getting out, walking down to the restaurant, getting a drink, walking down, getting something to eat. He's like, just get out and kind of see the city a little bit, and don't be kind of shackled to your hotel room. And that was some of the most sage advice. Now that I've been a road warrior for 20 plus years, I would say it's some of the best advice I ever got.
Let's talk about your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
When we were able to coordinate when you were coming on, I said, well, let me do some research. I've listened to two of them. One of them, you had a guy talking about butchery. Mm-hmm. That is compelling listening. That is something that people need to listen to, and the lost art of it, and how we're losing that technical skill with our young workers. So, I mean, yeah, it was interesting to listen to what y'all talked about, carving up protein and everything. But the other side was, we don't have young butchers coming up in the industrialization of our meat processing. And the other one I listened to was you had a Navy SEAL on there. And he said, I'm not in the motivational business. I'm in the pain business.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just said, I got to start. So I've already followed you, which I would encourage everyone to do. And but it's just such an interesting podcast that I hope people will listen to it. So talk about that for a minute and how you got into that business.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because, I grew up, my dad was a truck driver. My grandfathers were a roofer and a welder. So, been just a product of the trades. So I always liked it. And then we started a clothing company years ago. Me and my buddy Tim Montana, he's a recording artist. He's in the rock scene now and doing pretty well. Years ago, me and him just used the term old boy a lot. And so it was right before Christmas. He called me, let's say this is probably 2018. And he goes, well, we lost another friend that can't come hang out with us. I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, he's been home 3 days, and his wife said, you're not going back to hang out with Tim and Chad because you won't quit calling me and everybody else old boy. So we kind of started laughing about it, and Tim goes, you think we should do anything with it? And I was like, yeah, let's do like everybody else. We'll just trademark it, and we'll do a shirt and a hat and see what happens. And we did, and they sold out really quick. And then Tim went on to keep being a musician, and I went on and kept being a barbecue guy. And finally, we have this company named Trollco reach out to us. And Trollco, if you've ever seen like the Support Blue Collar shirts or Dirty Hands Clean Money, it's a very blue collar apparel brand that was built by two guys from out in the oil field. And they've grown significantly in the last 5 years. And so we get on a phone call during COVID about us. The way the phone call was pitched to us was they wanted to talk to me and Tim about being influencers for their brand. And we checked their brand out. We're like, you guys are pretty cool. We'll see how the Zoom goes. So we spent, 45 minutes on the Zoom call, and I'm like, man, I like these guys. They're cut from the same cloth we are, blah, blah, blah. And so at the end, they go, okay, so we asked you all that and talked about this to really get to the crust of today's situation, which is, what are you guys doing with the Old Boy apparel brand? And we're like, we're doing absolutely nothing.
Right.
We're too busy with everything else. Like, me and Tim have talked about a dream would be to partner with an apparel company that knows our audience, this and that. And he's like, well, that's why we wanted to talk. We're looking to acquire another brand and bring them on as partners. And so they gave us, they put up all the money. We do the business side 50-50, and we've got 51% creative control. So as they're laying it out, I go, is there a catch here?
Yeah.
They're like, no, we just really want to do business with you guys. So we started it off, and it was like, okay, one of the hardest things is, what is an old boy? Like, what's that mean? What's it stand for? When I wear this, what am I getting behind? And so we tried social and some of this and that. And it's like, you know what? Like, why don't we do a podcast? Like, I love doing podcasts. I love being a guest on them. I love hosting them. I just like getting to know people. Like,
right.
And so it's like, yeah, we should do that. And obviously highlight some of the people, so at the same time we can let people know, hey, here's the kind of people that are in this lifestyle, here's what it's about. But at the same time also throw more and more spotlight on, we got a real problem in this country, and that is nobody wants to friggin' work.
Right.
And especially when it comes down to the trades and what a lot of these people don't realize. And I don't know why, and I guess I do know why, because I grew up in the heart of that. I'm 47, so I feel like I grew up in the heart of that. If you don't go to college, you're not going to amount to jack.
Right.
Era of things. And there's nothing further from the truth. There's so many self-made people in this world. And so understanding and getting out to people that you go, look, when you get out of high school, go to a trade school, then go apprentice. And by 25, 26, if you got your stuff together, you can be hanging your own shingle, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? And building something that can create generational wealth.
Right.
Not for somebody
or creating
else,
debt for your business as opposed to paying off debt that you created for an education.
Absolutely. So to me, that's one of the huge crux behind it, is just getting folks to understand there is another way. And these are all things that are going to be in higher demand and have a higher billable rate in the future just because of supply and demand.
I think that mentality is changing. When I was getting out of high school, I was expected to go to college. Both my parents did. My older brother, younger brother, we all did. That was just, education was important. My daughter went to law school, is a very successful attorney now. My son, who's very smart, he had no interest in school. He didn't really like it, took a class or two at Polk and got him into Travis. And he's got his A&P license fixing airplanes right now.
Yeah.
Doing quite well, no debt, and he's been making money all the while when my daughter was in school and I was putting her through school. And it's just, I'm a big believer in trade schools. I'm a big believer in, if you're not built for college, don't try and force yourself.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not sure I would have really done well in college had I not had the expectation of, you're going and you're going to finish.
Yep.
I've told the story before. After 4 years, my dad sat me down on his bed, said, "Son, when do you plan on graduating?" I said, "I'm switching majors, Dad. I'm going into marketing. I'll be out in a year." And I was able to do that. But
Yeah.
that was his subtle way of saying, it's time to wrap up your college career and, grow up and leave the fraternity life.
Yep.
So, one of the videos I did watch was you and Ken Griffey Jr. cooking.
Yeah.
And you're not a small guy. You're not 5'5", $120,
No.
soaking wet. Ken Griffey towered over you. I don't know how big he is, but what a mountain of a man. Just could not have been any more pleasant. And you were doing tomahawk ribeyes, I think, and lobster.
Yes, sir.
Again, YouTube video, hilarious. Your personality showing through, his did. What I noticed, and there's a question I want to ask you somewhere, I'm a little off script now because we're kind of going all over, is it looks like, I think the difference between what professionals like you would do and me is you season a lot on your proteins. I put a little salt and pepper, maybe some lemon pepper, maybe some other spices, but it looks like you cover the stuff. Is that the secret to having really tasty protein?
I would say that's a big part of it. Like, and you have to look at what you're seasoning too. So,
Right.
like, if you take, for instance, in that video, that tomahawk, that's a 2.5, 3-inch tomahawk.
Oh yeah, it was huge.
So because you're not going to inject it or anything like that, you don't need to. The only seasoning you're going to get is from that outside crust. So I want to make sure I put that on, rather liberal. The other thing you can also do, and my guide to it is, season it well, season one side really well, and then shake it off. Just give it a little shake, and what sticks should stay. And then you've got the rest of it on the cutting board. Take your unseasoned side, put it on the seasoning that flaked off, and then cover the rest of the second side with whatever may be missing. But yeah, good seasoning. But then if you notice, like on the lobster tail, I didn't season it as aggressively.
Right. Correct.
Because,
The subtlety of the flavor.
absolutely. And you don't want to cover that up.
Right.
To me, I always tell people seasoning, smoke, glaze / sauce, it's just another component, right? Like nothing should overshadow the protein. The protein should always be the star of the plate. It's just how are we elevating it to where it's not a good bite, it's a great bite.
Right. We'll talk about some of your techniques and some things that you might want to share, but let's talk.
And I do got to brag on Griffey real quick.
Oh, yeah.
What a amazingly awesome guy. So I met Ken through just delivering
Right.
a Traeger to him through his manager that had reached out to HQ. Hey, we see he lives near you. So when I do VIP grill deliveries, I give myself an hour. Like I have everything. Usually we just do chicken and salmon. I've already got it marinated. I bring my little Yeti with me. It's already seasoned. So grill's already built. Grill's already burnt in. So we roll the grill in the backyard, plug it in. I walk them through how everything works. We cook a little chicken, a little salmon together. I'm in and out 55 minutes. Well, I'm hustling around doing my thing. About 30 minutes in, and Ken's like, "Hey, you in a hurry or something?" I was like, I try to keep these VIP deliveries like an hour. I want to be cautious of time. He's like, dude, I cleared my whole schedule. He's like, I got the Traeger guy coming. He's like, dude, I got a whole fridge full of protein. I figured we were going to cook all day. And I'm like,
Right.
That's all you had to say, bro. Let's go.
What I really liked about that, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but he kept moving you out of the way. When you started cutting in the meat and after this first bite, I'm realizing how big he is because he is just leaning on you, and all of a sudden you are in the background behind his right shoulder, and I just thought that was hilarious.
Once it comes eating time, man, he'll box you out. He'll box you out. But no, and then it just turned into like the coolest friendship. Like we cooked his birthday party. I've done a private class for him and his golf buddies that he goes to Scotland with every year. And then this came around. So Traeger was doing a collab pellet with Louisville. And my boss is up at Louisville headquarters. I was traveling. I was supposed to go to the meeting, but couldn't make it. And he had asked me for the meeting. He goes, you think Griffey'd be interested in doing something with us on this? I said, yeah, I think so. And so he's up there in the Louisville Slugger, meeting with Louisville Slugger, and they're like, yeah, we got to find, and they start mentioning like some tier 2 guys that we could work with. And my boss goes, well, what about Griffey? And they're like, there's no way he'll agree if we call him. He's like, I think if my guy calls him, he may. And he goes, and you can tell everybody around the conference room table at Louisville Slugger was like, okay, sure, Yalmar. I'm sure that'll happen. So he called me when he got out of the meeting. I called Ken, and I was like, hey, man, any chance you'd want to do like these 3 videos with me to help launch the product? And told him all about it. And he's like, does it help you? And I was like, oh, yeah, it would help me. And he goes, think we can do it in a day? I'm like, we can do it in 6 hours. I go, I'll make sure of it. And he goes, all right, I'm in. I was like, all right, now what's it going to cost Traeger? And he goes, well, it helps you, right? I was like, yeah, it helps me. He goes, oh, nothing. I was like, you serious, man? He's like, yeah. Yeah. He's like, you just get to spend the day cooking with. He's like, if I need money, I'll get it from one of them big corporations. They'll let me tax y'all. But he's just that kind of guy. And we had an absolute blast. We were in and out in like 5 hours and 15 minutes. And he hung around another 30, 45 minutes, talked to everybody, BS. He's just to be one of the greatest to play the game, he just couldn't be a better person.
And good people are good people. He was probably a good guy when he was playing. He probably took care of the attendants in the locker room, probably took care of the bat boys, bat girls, signed autographs till he was tired. And there are people that are like that. And then there's others who think I'm a little better than the others. I don't need to bend over and help that little kid.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners.
Hey, everyone.
Hola.
Hi, all.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. This is Rob Palumbo.
This is Fred Hyde.
This is Juliet Ashley Vide.
Dr. Angela Garcia Falconetti.
This is Congressman Scott Franklin.
This is Margie Grant.
This is Jake Palumbo.
And I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Please make sure that you like and or subscribe.
Don't forget
to subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. Tune in and listen.
Join in and listen to us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'll talk about competition, barbecues. What are the biggest mistakes that pros make or amateurs make in a competition?
I would say time management is number one. I tell people all the time, before you go cook a barbecue contest, you should be familiar with it enough to be able to run a simulated contest at your house. Like, literally do it like you would at a contest. Get your buddies together, stay the night at one of your houses, and just go through the timeline, because that's the one thing that gets away from you. And number two is understanding too, besides chicken, everything can rest a little bit. If your ribs are resting in the Cambro, 20 minutes before you sauce them and finish them, no big deal. Butts and briskets, they can hold a couple hours. So many people want to time it out right to on the spot that every animal's lived a different life, which means every protein is going to cook a little bit different. And all the variables are always different. One thing that irks the crap out of me at barbecue contest is when somebody comes up and goes, man, that pork's the same exact pork I turned in last week and it finished third. No, it's not. It came off a different animal. The humidity's different. The wind's different. The air temperature's different. There's so many things when it comes and you're cooking on a combustible fire. There's so many different variables that go into it that you could have used the same recipe. You could have followed the same temp guidelines, but no, that cook's not exactly the same as the other. So I feel like time management's one where people really lose it, and not just going through the steps. I used to be one to say, compete for 6 months or a year, then go take a class. I would tell you to cook a simulated, contest in your backyard, go cook maybe 1, maybe 2 amateur contests, and then entertain the thought of going to a competition class, depending on how you do. There's a lot of resources out there right now that can really, really cut the learning curve. When I started, there was one resource out there, and it was a PDF Adobe book it was $4.95. I bought it after I got my butt kicked that first contest by a team called Chatham Artillery. It's the only thing out there. But now, you can go out, there's a website called Barbecue League, You can go out there and see all these world champions and all their cook processes and those things. It'll kind of help you with that learning curve. But I would say just doing enough research. If you want to be good at it, you got to do enough research and you got to put in a ton of practice.
And you got to cook the competitions to get that real world experience to understand temperature, wind, and what all you were saying.
And the other thing is too, so many, I didn't do it this way, but so many others did. And I've had some come on, cook on my team and do the same as find a team and offer up, your elbow grease, offer to be the dish guy or the setup guy. Because the dish guy and the setup guy one day is going to turn into the seasoning guy and the injecting guy. And you just move yourself up through the ranks. And that gives you an opportunity to see, one, is it something you're really interested in? Because it's not cheap. You're going to have to go out and acquire, at least 2 smokers, some pop-up tents, some tables, a bunch of other stuff. So make sure it's something you're interested in before you go, jumping off the deep end.
Yeah. It sounds like that's the same process in a restaurant. As you start off as a dishwasher, busboy, you work up to maybe a prep cook. I've never done that before, but you don't start off as the executive chef.
Exactly.
You start off as a low man or a low woman on the totem pole, and you put in the time and you watch how you season, you watch how you cook and how you slice and how you do whatever. And if they've got an aptitude for it, they will move up and succeed. So,
absolutely.
Do you still cook a lot, or do you judge a lot, or are you 50-50? What do you like to do? Do you like to cook more than judge? Or
I've never been one. I've done a couple of like judgings at like events, but I've never judged like a legit barbecue contest, and I think I like to keep it that way. I've done some like, burger cook-offs or this and that. But I've never judged like a KCBS or an FBA contest. And contest-wise, I only commit to one a year anymore, and it's Pigfest. And it's still the one that I've never won. I got really close one year. It's hard these days because I'm not competing enough to where I'm on top of it. Like I keep saying that coming into this year, and I think I will based on my October travel schedule, I'm going to try to have half a dozen test cooks before Pigfest this year, since I'm not competing as much. But used to, I ran 25, 30 events a year, and now Pigfest will be the only contest I cooked this year. Yeah, because I missed all the other world championships. Yeah, so I'm only down to like one a year.
I would think one of the variables to being successful are the judges and their personal taste, too. You didn't touch on that as much as the other factors that you can control.
Right. But because that's the one, Todd, you can't control. Right. So we call them tables of death and angel tables. So the table of death is, and you can see it on the scoring sheet. So on the scoring sheet, they'll show judge table numbers. And you can tell, like, if you have 3 or 4 good cooks and the first box on that table was 20th, that's the table of death. That you could have put Wagyu filet out there, gold crusted, and it was still going to get an 8. These are guys that just, I don't know why they judge. Like, unless it's just to come out and stroke their own ego. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's not as good as mine. 8.5. That's not as good as mine. Really? 9. It feels like it, right? Because it's like, man, you just had 3 guys that are heavy hitters.
Yeah.
In their best categories, and you're telling me the best one at the table is 20th?
Yeah.
But the other thing that can set it off is what you call the angel table, which it's like these people have it 8 in 3 days.
Right.
You could throw the worst piece of pork down there, 9, like just get banged out. And it's like, damn, why couldn't I have been on those guys' table? So to me, at the end of the day, and Rub Bagby from Swamp Boys, legendary barbecue cook. I mean, to me, the godfather of Florida competition barbecue, told me something very early on. He said, Chad, you want to cook the best average barbecue possible. He said, when I say the best, he's like tenderness, moisture, it's got to be spot on. He's like flavor profile wise, average. Don't put Grandma Sue's, blueberry barbecue sauce on it, because all it takes is one judge to go, I hate blueberries.
Yeah.
Tanks you. You know what I mean? So you're just going for that. And the other thing he always said too was, remember, if you're going to err on a side, err on overcooked and too sweet. Because if it's too spicy, some of those 70, 80-year-old judges are going to let you know all about it. And remember, if it's too tender, once you expose meat to air, it naturally tightens up. If it's too tight, all it does is get tighter.
Right.
So sorry, Rub, giving away all your comp secrets.
No. You cook a lot. Do you like your own food? Do you like your own competition food, or is like, I can't serve that. I can't eat this every day because I'm trying to get one judge to like one slice or one bite or whatever it is. And, you know, if I eat that kind of food every day, I'd be Mr. Creosote.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because that is so true. I tell people all the time, they're like, man, I would love to eat a slab of your competition ribs. I'm like, no, you would not. Like, you would be physically ill. There's so much butter and sugar because that judge is only obligated to one bite.
Right.
So you try to throw as much into one bite. Once again, not over, like we talked about earlier, not overshadowing the protein or anything like that, but that one bite has to have everything you want it to have. So if you imagine having one bite that's that rich across the whole rack of ribs, you're going to have a tummy ache at best.
What's your favorite food to eat when you're not, I mean, you can't eat barbecue every day.
No, I don't eat much barbecue. It's one of those things, like, even if it's the best meal, like,
Right.
we did an awesome beef tenderloin the other night, and I had like 2 quarter medallions of it just to try it, make sure it didn't need any seasoning or anything like that. But I just don't eat a ton of it. I'd have to say, like, good pizza, because that's usually my fallback after an event.
Right.
Is either pizza or grilled shrimp Caesar salad. One of those decent for you, one of them not so much.
Where's your favorite place to eat locally?
Locally here, I mean, you got to appreciate what Marco does in 1961 from a white tablecloth, just from a nice meal point of view. I love that place. Love Tim and Tina over at Fresca's. Done some events with them. They're just great folks. And I like good food and whiskey, and that's a great spot to go for good food and whiskey. And then Mick from, he can't be a pizza guy, not like El Forno. So
Yeah, I'm a El Forno fan.
and
I
that
like
to
their
me is just-
lasagna.
yeah, and yes, their lasagna is amazing, and I'm a fan of their Alfredo sauce. When I get a calzone or a pie, I gotta go with the Alfredo, not the marinara.
So you've eaten all over the world.
Yeah,
If you could say, my last meal, this is what I want, where would it be from and what would it be?
I said I don't like barbecue, but I'd have to go back. Or I don't eat barbecue much, but probably one of my favorite barbecue meals ever was a place in Kansas City, Missouri, called Q39. It was owned at the time by my buddy Rob McGee, who's now passed. But Rob had such a cool pedigree. So he was, a CIA chef, and then he went to be the executive chef at the Hilton in Kansas City and knew nothing about barbecue, but just had to learn it kind of. You're in Kansas City.
Right.
People expected. So he gets really passionate about learning barbecue and then goes out and starts taking all of his time, and he goes out and wins 2 KCBS Team of the Years while still, running the Hilton, and just decided he was going to break out and build his own place. So Q39 still one of the best, restaurant briskets I've ever had. He does these burn-ins that are absolutely amazing. He also does some burn-ins that he then turns and puts in corn dog batter, which is just stupid good. So yeah, I would say I'd have to go back to Q39 and get the rib and brisket platter. That would probably be my last meal.
What's your favorite protein to cook?
Brisket by far.
Is it the hardest?
I think brisket, in the 4 comp categories, everybody would say, I believe it's the hardest. For us, at dumb luck, it was the one that we scored with the best and first. I don't know if it's just because I concentrated a bunch on it, because it's supposed to be the hardest one, but I always feel like if you don't like brisket, you've either never had good brisket or you're vegan, and either one of those questions count, or answers count.
So if you win, is the brisket the one everybody wants to win, or is it ribs or whole pig? I mean, you see all these different things on TV.
I don't think I think when it comes to categories, people aren't too worried about which one they win. I mean, brisket's one to always brag about. Whole hog's one to brag about for sure, just because they're both just very difficult cooks. Ribs is another one to brag about, just because a lot of people can cook a good rib. So if you win ribs that day, yours had to be pretty dang special. But obviously what everybody's going for is the grand championship, which is the culmination of those 4 categories.
With all the heavy food that you cook, what's your favorite side? Or do you say there's so much fat and so much flavor and everything, I need kind of a mild side? Do you want a vegetable side? Is that baked beans? Is that another heavy thing with a lot of meat in it?
To me, there's two that I really like, and it's kind of to offset the heaviness of the meat. One is I hated Brussels sprouts growing up because
I still do.
I grew up on those boiled Brussels sprouts that just are terrible. And then when I first came to Traeger, I saw somebody grilling Brussels sprouts, and I was like, well, I'll give it a try. By far one of my favorite sides.
Really?
Split it in half, a little bit of avocado oil. I use my rock seasoning, 375 degrees, throw them on there, roast them till you can put a toothpick through them. Probably at 375, somewhere like 30 to 45 minutes, depending on what time of year and how big the Brussels are. And then I'll pull them off and finish them with a little bit of feta cheese and some balsamic vinegar. They're pretty damn good.
Well, I'll have to try that because they smell like stinky feet to me.
Yeah.
Old dirty socks that have been wrapped up. And Evangeline in our office, she always gets that when we go out to Longhorn. And she wants to bring it back to the office. It's like, you got to write on the hood. You're not going to sit in the car with that nasty thing. So.
And my other one is Julie, my girlfriend, makes a elote salad. That's just, to me, it's a really, really refreshing bite, because it's kind of like street corn, but in a side dish. With a little bit of chili cheese Fritos on top to give it a little crisp. I love that side dish.
So you've eaten a lot of barbecue in your life. You don't eat as much anymore. What's your favorite regional taste? What do your taste buds go toward? Carolina, Kansas City, Texas, Alabama? What is it that?
I would say probably more towards, I don't like the sauces much. So Kansas City's super saucy from a regional point of view. So I'd say I probably fell more in the Memphis. I'm more kind of like personally eating. I like the dry rub aspect of things, but you take me to Memphis, I'm not eating barbecue. I'm going to get chicken.
Right.
Fried chicken, baby. Gus's.
Are there trends that you're seeing coming in either the barbecue world or the cooking world that you're out here all over the place?
Yeah, I think you're going to find more and more people cooking offcuts, if you will. Like, if you look at the last 10 years of tri-tip, like, tri-tip's been known very, very well out on the West Coast forever. But once again, the power of social media and all these things is now you see tri-tip cooked in all 50 states. The other one is finding small things like people doing burn-ins with chuck roast instead of the whole time to cook a whole brisket. So finding more inexpensive cuts, but still being able to get a quality culinary and eating experience out of it. And I think that a lot of that's our economy right now where it's at. Everything's so damn expensive on the protein side.
Hey everybody, this is your host Todd Dantzler, and I hope you're enjoying this episode. I would like to take a moment to do a shameless plug for my real estate business. As most of you know, I'm a partner with SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate, but I am also a working broker who is very active in listing and selling real estate. I've been in this business for over 41 years. I know, you're thinking he can't be, he's so young looking, but no, it's true. I've been actively listing and selling commercial real estate my entire working career on properties ranging from ag land to multifamily projects to office and commercial and industrial properties. I have held the distinguished CCIM designation since 1991. This is the highest designation you can achieve in the commercial real estate field. I believe that a big part of my success in the real estate business is because of the relationships that I have fostered throughout the state of Florida and also right here in Polk County. So if you have any real estate needs in buying or selling, please give me a call to see if I can help out. My direct line to my desk is 863-877-2846. Again, that's 863-877-2846. I want to talk about Traeger and some of your other things, but I want to go through a kind of a lightning round just to talk about, we've been here close to an hour and I appreciate your time. I could spend all day with you like Ken Griffey wanted to because it's so enjoyable. What's your cholesterol level?
Actually, it's good. I just got doing my physical. That is one thing I will say for anybody out there that does travel a bunch. One of the decisions I made probably 8 years ago was to get a private physician. because when you're on the road, if you got an ailment or something like that, like trying to navigate the regular medical system is a nightmare. But having a concierge doctor that you can reach out to at any time. So I go get everything checked. Being a bigger guy, I try to get everything checked twice a year just to be safe. So cholesterol is in check.
Okay. Does Florida have a distinct barbecue style like these other regions? Are we kind of the mutt of the world with everyone moving down here? They bring their own.
You hit it right there. I would say much as the way our state is, our barbecue flavor is kind of melting pot, muddish.
And you use a lot of social media. Is that kind of your main way of marketing your business and your products? Is that how you do it for the most part? Your website too?
Yep. So now with hiring a marketing company that's going to help us more on the online side, I think we'll see more business coming from search engine optimization, some of those things. But as of right now, I would say social is probably one of our biggest, and we're going to continue to double down on that. We've got a little influencer program we're going to be starting up and some things like that.
So when you were cooking a lot for competitions, mentally and organizationally, how did you get your mind right? How did you get organized? Like how do you prepare, I guess, on your level versus me throwing a steak on the grill?
That's a great question. And what I would do is the week. So comp week on Tuesday, I've got a spreadsheet with about 8 tabs on it. You just print that spreadsheet out and it walks you through the week. So Tuesday night, you trim chicken. Here's how you package it. Wednesday night, you do ribs. Here's how you do that. So I've got the whole.
So your timeline is really the most important thing to keep you organized.
Yep. And so even to the point of so the Tuesday of contest week, you have that whole spreadsheet. The Tuesday before the Tuesday of contest, there's a whole set of tasks to go through and make sure you have this, make sure you have that. So that way, if you got to order it, you give yourself plenty of time for it to get here by the time you need to pack it out. So for me, it was just learning what worked. I'm very much like a Visio diagram. I'm not an engineer by any means.
Right.
I have degrees in finance, but I kind of think like an engineer from a process point of view. And so everything's just kind of built out that way. That's the way it's easiest for me.
Is it different for prepping for a smaller competition versus the larger national ones? Is Pig Fest considered a big one, or is it a big one here locally?
No, so I will prepare for them the same way, whether they're a world championship, a big contest, or just a 25 person down the road. And yes, I would say Pig Fest is definitely nationally recognized for sure, and that's one of the proud things about being a Polk County and a Lakeland guy is. Especially as I've made more of a name for myself in barbecue, is being able to invite my friends down. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I know you haven't, Tommy Houston, guy from Checkered Pig last year, Tommy hadn't cooked and competed in a year and a half, and I ran across him at an event. I'm like, hey, get your ass out of that January snow and come down and burn some barbecue with us, man. Yeah. And he did. He got like 2 calls that day. Hadn't cooked in a year and a half. You know what I mean? But it's fun to be able to invite guys down and show them, and Bill and Donovan and the whole crew do such a good job with that event.
How big is your team? I mean, it's like if you call a buddy down, hey, come down and cook with me. Do they really have a job, or do you put them on pots and pans, garbage duty, or do they just hang out and drink beer and socialize?
I would say when it comes to cooking, there's probably 3 or 4 of us. And then you have the other buddies that are hanging around, especially like, last year I had my buddy from Boise fly in, a buddy from Canada, a buddy from Ohio, Georgia. So to me, like, I want them to be able to like be as much or as little of the contest as they want, right? Because, I don't want them to feel like they can't go walk around and see what's going on. So really it's like me, Matt, and Jared will handle like we're the one talking timeline, and then the other buddies that are there are an extra set of hands, or hey, if they decided to go check that. My niece is always cooked in the kids queue, so a lot of times people want to go over there and check her out and see what she's doing. So I try to make it to where everybody can enjoy the experience.
So you got your core group,
yep.
And then your buds that come in, they're hanging out, they help when they can, they're enjoying the experience, and hopefully going back and having positive things.
Yeah, and then Julie and I usually will do the ancillaries together the night before, and then she'll help out some on the competition side on Saturday too. So yeah, we just kind of, everybody, we kind of talk about it beforehand before it gets busy. And if you got to roll, make sure you fill it.
Yeah. Do you do much with exotic meats?
Yes, a lot. I do like cooking a lot of exotics. I think the one thing to always look at is it's just always going to be leaner. I tell the story. Some of the first wild game I ever cooked was before I was with Traeger. I had an opportunity to do a tailgate grill with Kid Rock, and we're at Bobby's house up in Alabama, and he brings out this huge wild turkey breast and this Axis deer tenderloin. And at first I looked at that Axis and I'm like, there is not one piece of fat in this. It is all red.
Wrap it in bacon.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I cooked it reverse sear, so I didn't wrap it in bacon. I just I smoked it at 185 till it hit about 105, and then I seared it off to 120, and then let it carry over cook to like 125, and it ended up being a perfect medium rare. The turkey breast, what I did there, instead of going to 162 like you would on a regular turkey breast, I took it to 155. Because on poultry, if anything's at 145 for 5 minutes or longer, all the bacteria is dead anyway. And Bobby came back like 20 minutes later and he goes, me and my family agreed. That's the best wild game we've ever had.
Good.
So he still calls me a couple times a year to go cook wild game for him. So
If someone, do you supply wild game through your store or
we
special order it, or how do you handle it?
Yes, we do. We do have access to wild game at the store. Okay. So we have a full meat counter where you can get a lot of stuff. But if you're looking for something in particular, yeah, you can just call the store up and say, hey, I'm looking for some elk or some venison or bison or whatever. And we've got about 3 different meat purveyors that we work with, and we can get it for you.
What's your favorite smoker setup? Or do you do a lot of smoking?
Yeah, no, I would say I do mostly, smoking. So the smoker setup, I like the Traeger Ironwood XL's a really good unit. And I like pairing it with the Flat Rock, which is the new griddle Traeger came out with about 2 years ago, which to me, that was awesome. Talk about like opening up a whole new lease on life. There's only so many barbecue recipes you can do over an 8 to 10 year period. But then having a griddle that Traeger came out with, that's really, we were 2 years later than everybody else, but I'm glad we were, because it really, this griddle doesn't flame out. It's got really, really even heating. You have defined zones. So a lot of the stuff that got cleaned up from some of the other brands, which sometimes, being first to market's not always best. Sometimes being second with it done right is more effective.
So I went on your website and looked, and you've got a bunch of recipes on there. And I think, guys, at your level, you're very generous with, hey, I want to share with you what I know. Let me make it easier, so maybe you'll become a fan and you'll start cooking more Outback and everything. I noticed there weren't any salads on there.
No.
Everything on there that your recipes looked phenomenal. So I would encourage people to go to whiskeyBentBBQ.com, and you've got your recipes on there. You're very generous with how you share those. So I did want to say that. What's the biggest mistake that backyard cooks make?
I would say, once again, just kind of rushing it, like not thinking all the way through. To me, I was just had a discussion yesterday with a guy that does a lot of tailgating. And he's like, I just feel like I'm getting rushed towards the very end, every time. And I'm like,
time management.
Yeah. And I said, okay, so what on the day of, like, what are you going back and referencing? And he's like, well, what do you mean? What am I referencing? He's like, I'm just keeping it all in my head. I'm like, well, that's your number one problem right there. Write out a plan and stay ahead of it. Yeah.
Check it off.
Yeah. And to me, you were talking earlier before you came on of, hey, I still like papers and this and that. When it comes to things like that, or like even for my podcast, I still like writing it out, because when I write it out, it just ingrains it a little bit further.
Right. And Eli, you hear that?
Did I just back you up on something, Todd?
Yes, I'm very appreciative of that. Eli is the most eligible bachelor in Polk County. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No, right? Eli, all right.
But he jumps on my rear end about having this paper, and I rustle it around. So
I'm trying to get him to go to an iPad.
Yeah. Sorry, Eli.
I can't flip around.
Up, little boy.
You've mentioned temperatures a couple times here. Is there really a difference between 157 and 154 when you're so precise, and listen to when you're talking with your butcher or your butcher guest, you were referencing these temperatures, and it's like, man, if I'm supposed to be at 125 and I'm at 123, Is that really a big difference?
To me, when it comes to finish temperatures, a couple of degrees here or there, not gonna. I mean, it's the difference in 125 and 145. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, a couple degrees of freedom here or there don't concern me too much. And the same way on the temperature of your cooker. If I say, hey, cook at 275, I really don't care if it's between 265 and 285.
Right.
But what meat doesn't like is 275. Oh, now I get busy. Oh, now I take a shot. Oh, now it's been an hour and a half. It's 180.
Right.
Throw 2 logs on it. Oh, now it's 325. And it's kind of like, it just doesn't like those swings. So if you can stay away from the swings and just keep it consistent, I think that's what turns out the best product.
You partner, you cook a lot, you got your buds or firefighters, you do a lot with them, you bring them into your store. Tell us a little bit about your affinity for first responders, our public safety guys and gals that keep us safe and keep us healthy.
Yeah, I mean, first, I just grew up that way. Always, respect first responders. You never know when you're going to need them. It's a very thankless job. So one of the things that, when we were starting to build out the store, Nicole, my ex-wife and business partner, was a firefighter. We've been able to be fortunate enough with the business that she was able to retire last year. And there was just something about, I looked at it and it's, when it comes to firefighters, they have a set schedule. They're good with the public, and most of them like to cook. And that's kind of a firehouse thing, right? They're very communal. And so that's kind of the same aspects I want my store to have. So why not do it with those folks? So that's what I've really enjoyed about it. We try to, do something every year to support, first responders either here locally or, across the U.S.
Right.
Just got back. We were, it was cool. We got to go up with our friend, Amanda Riggin from Hungry Heroes, who came down here last year and helped us feed PCSO. We got to go up and feed 500 first responders in New York City the day after 9/11 this year, which was really, really cool. So we just enjoy doing that and just giving back to, first responders. And from a store point of view, they're just a great fit.
What's your favorite music?
Oh man, I'm old school country. I like the Hank, Merle, George, all that kind of stuff.
Real country.
Yeah, real country. Listen to some of the new stuff, but it's gotten so poppy, and it really makes me like the new stuff that's still got a little bit of soul to it. So, but yeah, I like the older stuff for sure. Now, the barbecue contest, couple cocktails in, there may be some 90s rap playing. I'm not going to take that away to anybody listening.
Perhaps Kid Rock, if you mentioned him.
Yeah.
Do you sing along with it? Do you have a voice, or do you?
No, I'm a terrible singer, but I will tell you,
You sound better the more beer you have.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty damn good though at kind of name that tune. Like, people are impressed all the time with how many songs I know front to back. Like, quick story, we did the Super Bowl this year in Vegas. We do the Dan Patrick shows, so we do Monday through Friday, every morning. And usually we'll fly home, but I had to go do an event in Hawaii on Monday. So I said, well, we'll just stay here on the West Coast. So Friday night, I get a call from Dan's backroom guy, and he's like, hey, what are you up to? I said, man, we're dog tired. We're just going to grab a drink and go to bed. It's like, well, I've got tickets to a private Post Malone show, like only 300 people, open bar. Like, will you come? And I'm like, yeah, we'll come. Like, done. Like, I was like, here's my catch. It's like 7:45. I'm like, here's my catch. Like, he's going on at like 11, right? Like, I'll be asleep. I don't think so. And he goes, no, he's going on in 45 minutes. And I'm like, all right, we'll be right there. So we get in. Dan actually came and joined us. Post starts playing, and I knew every Post Malone song word for word. And Dan was just standing there like, how do you know every one of these? Like, yeah, kind of the number one guy I want to cook for. So then to get to cook for him, a couple months later was pretty neat. But yeah, my music's all over the board. But we turn on go out and get in my truck right now. I think there's some Hank Williams Jr. playing.
Who would play you in a movie when they do your life story?
Oh man, I would say Chris Farley, but he's dead. That'd have been pretty cool. But
with AI, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I don't know. Some poor guy that gets a role to try to save his career.
So as we kind of wrap up, tell us about your store. Yeah. Tell us about your your mail order, if people want to buy your product, what you have. Tell us about Traeger and your relationship with them. If they want to get in your barbecue classes, do they just sign up online, go to your website, or stop by the store? Tell us where the store is.
Perfect. So the store is over on 2325 Commerce Point Drive, Suite 100. We're towards the back. We've got a little over 16,000 square feet there. We've got the store. We've got our classroom and community center. We've got our manufacturing. And then we've got all the distribution we do for our products there. We are open Monday through Saturday, off on Sundays. And on the Traeger side of things, and you can check us out, Whiskey Bent BBQ, online, also on all the socials, either Whiskey Bent BBQ or Whiskey Bent BBQ Supply. As far as where to find us, you can find us in all the academies. You can find us on the website, and you can find us on Amazon as far as your easiest ways. And then Traeger, golly, just got done doing 8 years. July was 8 years.
You're National Director of Marketing for them?
Barbecue Marketing Director.
Barbecue Marketing Director. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good title. And they let me write it myself. But yeah, so been with them, been with Traeger almost 10 years, over 10 years total. 8 years as an employee. Things are going great there. Keep an eye out. There's some new and exciting stuff in 2025. And then as far as classes go, we try to do those monthly at the store, monthly that I host. We're going to start sprinkling in some Thursday night and Friday night, like not as hardcore classes, but more like, all right, come out, 5:30 to 7:30 on a Thursday night. We're going to do 3 different types of wings. It's $20. But yeah, as far as classes, you can find those on the website or on social media, which will give you a link over to the site. Or you can just come in the store. Like I said, we try to do those monthly. And then other places that I do classes is usually out in Salt Lake at Traeger HQ. I think I'm doing a Thanksgiving class out there in November. But yeah, you can just keep up on my social media, Whiskey Bent BBQ, on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. So everything's there.
So my son and his best friend, my son Jacob and his best friend James, they like cooking some of these things, but they're vendors. Mm-hmm. They're not competitors, they're vendors, and they make good money when they go out and do it. And again, they were all excited when I got to say hello to you. If I wanted to bring them out to a class on Saturday, how long does that? Is it all day? Is it 9 to 12 and we're done? Or
yeah, we try to do it depending on time of year. This time of year, I'll look at it and see. Not that anybody cares to watch Florida State this year, but in years past, when we weren't 2 doormats. I would look at what time the games were.
We all like a little pain in our life.
Yeah. So if they were both playing at 3:30, then I would make the class 11 to 2.
Okay.
So it's usually somewhere in the 2 to 3 hour range.
Okay. The last question, let's say I'm ready to get into the barbecue business, but I'm just cooking in the backyard. Mm-hmm. I want a Traeger grill. Which one would you suggest I start off with? I'm not competition. Mm-hmm. I'm not feeding the neighborhood. I got small family. What do I look for in a Traeger to start off?
Yeah, I would say just something that addresses your needs as far as how many people you're cooking for. So to me, we've got the Traeger Pro Series, the Pro 575 or the Pro 780 is a great start.
Is that just like the square inches?
Square inches,
the size of it.
That's exactly what it is. And so for me, the one thing, owning a barbecue store for now 11 years is I've never had anybody come back and say this grill's too big. I've had several people come back and say, damn, I wish I'd have got the bigger model. So once again, a lot of people buy grills for their day-to-day. Hey, it's me and my wife and 2 kids. And, a 575 is enough for 4 people. But then I think what happens is people get comfortable with the grill. They start looking on their phone. They start looking up recipes on Traeger.com. And they're like, oh, well, I want to throw a side dish in there. Or, man, I'm really confident in my ribs. I want to invite some more people over. And they kind of run out of real estate. You know what I mean? So once again, just understanding if you think there's any way you will use the extra space, because usually the cost difference is so fractional based off the investment you're making. Why not? Unless it's a space thing.
Right.
Why not get a little bit bigger model? So that'd be the only thing. Once again, not trying to push anybody into spending more money, but just saying based on feedback.
Spend a few extra dollars, you might not need to buy another one in a couple of years.
Right.
Well, Chad, I appreciate it. This has been one of the more fun podcasts we've done. I've learned an awful lot. You've been very open with everything that goes on in your world, and it's not a world that I typically live in. So I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate all you do and your promotion of your product and for Polk County and Pig Fest. Again, if you want to look for the barbecue classes, it's whiskeyBentBBQ.com. I'm assuming you do all the social media sites. That's what I have Eli here for, is to do all those things.
We're on all of them. We haven't got back on MySpace yet, but I don't think anybody has.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Shameless commercial. You do supply our meats. I mean, we buy them, but we get our meat from you for our company barbecue, where we cook for 350 people, somewhere around there. All our spices come from you. Everything tastes great. So I can give firsthand testament that this is the real deal. If you want some great barbecue, go down and see Chad and his guys and gals at the store. Go online, and I appreciate it. I've enjoyed spending the time with you here today. Appreciate what you do for us here in Polk County, and I wish you the best luck in the rest of everything you're doing.
Awesome, Todd. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time, and always love sharing the story, and to be able to do it here in the hometown, and just draw more eyes to where we came from and why we love this place so much.
Was there anything I didn't ask you that you were hoping I would, or is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't get to?
I do have to throw one more local shout out in.
Please.
Because it's the barbecue I was raised on, and I still go and eat it a couple of times a year. And old Jimbo's, yep. Hush puppies and ribs. Yeah. That's
Eli's giving it the thumbs up over there.
Yeah, no, that was Harold when he was around and he owned it. I remember. Once again, maybe, this is one of those memories that's like the allure of why I got into barbecue. But I remember, my dad coached and played on a softball team out there at Southwest Complex. Right. And they get done with their season, and Harold would bring out the biggest igloo cooler of barbecue and just always fed them boys and just took care of them. And to me, like, there's always been something about barbecue and community. You know what I mean? And it's just especially here where we live, Polk County is, to me is very humble, but there's something about barbecue and taking care of the community with it that I think is just cool, and Jimbo's has always done that, so I had to get that in there.
Well, good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's anything we can do for you, help let us know, and appreciate everyone listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care.
Hey, everybody. I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. This has been your host, Todd Dantzler. As always, don't forget to rate, review, follow, and subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions for me or any suggestions for future guests, please call or text our number at 863-288-0944 or visit todddantzler.com. Again, that's 863-288-0944, or visit my website, todddantzler.com. I look forward to hearing your questions and feedback, and please take care.